This video is entitled Data Flow Diagramming an Example, Lawnco, and it's video 5D. It goes along with Chapter 5 of our Systems Analysis and Design course. I'm Dr. Renaud from Shawnee State University, and I'll be taking you through this video. I wanted to show in this video the data flow diagram process from start to finish with a single problem. So I've created a fictional lawn mowing service and I've called it Lawnco, Lawnco. So Lawnco is a lawn mowing service that has many crews that go out every day doing many jobs in a day. So I can send out this crew and do these jobs, and that crew goes out and does those jobs, and maybe a different crew would go back in a couple of weeks and do the job again. But you can see that I have all kinds of crews and all kinds of jobs. So a customer completes a contract when they want to have Lawnco do their work with their contract information and information about the property that they want us to take care of their lawn. They receive from us a formal quotation from Lawnco. Will generate a formal quotation and send it to the customer. And if they accept it, their lawn or their lawn care or whatever the outdoor care they need us to do will be scheduled for work, and the work will then start being sent to our crews to be done. So customers also will be billed by the system, and hopefully we'll pay every month. And they'll be billed a flat fee for all of the contracted services they have done. So whether we have to mow once or whether we have to mow twice or whether we have to mow 3 times, it doesn't matter. Everybody gets charged a flat fee every month for service. That way we can pay our employees, and that's how we do it. So each morning, every crew, because we've got multiple crews, receives a report with a list of jobs to do today. So every crew will get a list of jobs every day of what to do, and when they return in the evening, they will give us a list of the jobs they completed. So they'll take that list and they'll scribble on it that we did this job, but we couldn't do this job because the dog wasn't locked up, or it started raining and we couldn't get to these jobs. So and we'll then enter that into our Lawnco system. So that's the Lawnco problem. Let's create a context diagram. Well, initially, I see that the Lawnco problem would be 2 entities, 2 external sinks and sources. The customer fills out a contract. That's part of the system. We generate a quote to the customer, and the customer will either accept or decline the quote. So that would be those first 3 arrows coming up off of the customer. Lawnco also will send a monthly invoice to the customer, and the customer will send us a payment. Now, what data is a payment? Well, it would be invoice number, amount, date, whether it was paid with cash or check or credit card, or right. So there is data in that payment flow besides just money, but money's data, right? Well, dollar numbers about money is data. So we can see there that's all of the data flows to and from the customer as described in the problem. Another entity, and the only other entity that I saw in the problem as written, was the crews that we send out. And the crews get their daily work list and send in every evening when they bring the equipment back, and they clock out their daily finish list of all the work they've done or all the work they haven't done. So here I use the Draw.io open source graphics drawing tool, and I generated a pretty context diagram. You can see that the Lawnco system is there as process 0. You can then see the customer with their 5 flows and the crew with its 2 flows, the work list and the work daily finish list out. Let's now take this to a level 0 diagram. So to generate this level 0 diagram, I took those two entities, the customer and the crew, and I took their data flows, the customers, um, the customers' three data flows and the crew's two data flows. Now notice that the customer has an extra data flow. And the reason is when I really read the problem, when I went back and looked at the detail, because I'm adding detail here from context. I'm taking the context diagram and the problem and I'm looking for more detail. It said that I sent customer contact information and property information. So what if a customer has multiple properties? Same bill to, maybe I've got a commercial customer who has multiple properties and I do work on all of them. So that customer information would go once, but the property information would go multiple times. So I split that up into two separate data flows. The first process I created was process one, create a quote, because we get the customer information, the contact information, and we generate a quote, and that quote goes back to the customer. Um, that quote also goes down into the customer table, right? Because we've saved the customer information, their contact information, their name, address, their phone number, their email, all of that kind of stuff. The contract and the quote information go over to the start service process that waits for their acceptance. And once they give us their acceptance, we add all of the contract and all of the quotes and the day they accepted it over to our contracts table. So I don't say we create a contract when we generate the quote. We generate the quote first, and then we actually create the contract once they accept the contract, once they accept the quote. You could have done the data flow differently, but I talked to the owners of Lawnco, me, and that's how I said I wanted it done. Um, So when we create the quote, the customer information goes to the customer table. Now we start the service. So what's next? Okay, three, create a daily work list. Wouldn't that be the another process? And you can see that the daily work list takes all of the daily work from the daily work data store and sends it to the crew, and the crew sends the list back, and then it gets updated back into the daily work table. So the daily work data store now shows the daily work that's been done, the daily work that needs to be done, and all of that. You can also see that the customer billing information comes out and flows into generate invoices that then sends the data back up to the customer and also to a data store called invoices. And then when the customer sends a payment, we process the receipts. The paid date and amount gets updated to the invoices, and the invoice then gets marked as paid. Now, there's a process missing in this. After I had done it, I sat down and I looked at this and thought, there's a huge process missing because what creates daily work? There's no process that puts data in the daily work table. None. The data just doesn't come from somewhere, nowhere. It doesn't just end up in that data store. So I believe this error, this document is actually in error. It's not quite right. We need a process to create the daily work, to go through all of the contracts, to decide what lawns need taken care of and what lawns don't need taken care of in the next 24 to 48 hours that would then generate the daily work table. So there's a missing process. I don't quite know what to call it. Generate daily work or generate contracts to work on. Um, I don't know if it's going to need other data flowing into it. There could be a manager that would kick that off. I don't know, But I think that there's something missing from this diagram. And when I caught the problem, I thought to myself, well, let's leave it as a problem and let's talk about the problem. So you know how to resolve it would be to create a process that would maybe read in the contracts, that would then generate the daily work, and then that daily work would then be used to create the lists. Maybe that daily work list takes the contracts and generates the work list and writes out the daily work all in the same process 3. I don't know. That's one of those things where you get this diagram started and you then go, what are the business rules? How does this really work? How does it work in the real world? And that's where you would take this diagram and start manipulating it, refining it before you move on to the next step. By spending your time doing a good analysis, you're going to save yourself a lot of headache in the future. This concludes video 5D, the Lawnco example. This video is copyright 2020 by James Imbrano, PhD. All rights are reserved. I'd like to say thank you for watching, and I hope to see you in future videos.